Hey everyone. Oh, we're live. Yes. Welcome to the live stream for Chinese Medicine podcast tonight. I might just back a tiny bit. Hope you're doing well. I'm going to be answering some subscribers' questions or people's questions. If you'd like to ask a question, please put it in the comments below this stream, and I'm going to jump on to some of the other questions from the comments. It usually takes people a little bit of time to get on to the channel. So I hope you're doing well. Hope you're having a great evening if you're in Australia, or you might be having a morning if you're in the USA, or afternoon in the UK. So I hope you are having a good time. Let me just find some questions. So it's been a busy time for me. I've just been doing a lot of different stuff and making some videos today, which was really awesome. Been working on my course that's going to be starting next year. So that's super exciting. I can't wait to be teaching people online through Zoom, a whole bunch of new people. That's exciting. So I was making a video today to answer a subscriber's question about parasites, cleansing, and that will be published in a couple of days' time. They asked about wormwood and various parasite options in Chinese medicine. And neem was mentioned and some other things. And we're talking about dampness, as everybody loves dampness. So, if you have a question, please put it in the comments. If you're having any trouble to hear me, or you can't see me, or something wrong, put that in the comments. So I'm going to talk about let's just answer some questions. So someone asks, is raw coconut damp? So everything in Chinese medicine, when we talk about these, like answering these questions, is always relative. Like there's no absolutes, right? Apart from a few things, there's hardly any absolutes. So whether it's dampening for you might be, it might be more dampening for someone who's like already has a tendency to that, and also who already has let's say a dampening diet already. So if what do they mean by raw coconut? Like just eating coconut out of its, out of the shell, like fresh coconut, is probably not so much damp, but the liquid of the inside the coconut water, is really, really, really strongly yin tonifying, which means anything that tonifies yin is going to have a strong dampening kind of component to it. So just put that on there. Questions welcome. So that's one thing to think of if you're interested in learning about Chinese medicine. Anything that can tonify yin is going to have the downside of it is that it can create damp if you have too much of it, especially. Now, there's some things that are dampening that are just like toxic dampening, let's say. So things like fast foods and those kinds of things, sugars, that's different. They are dampening, but they don't tend to have that beneficial aspect. So it depends on how much you're eating in the quantity. Like I can't imagine someone eating a lot of raw coconut unless they live on one of those tropical islands where the coconuts are just coming down from the roof for them. Not on the roof, but you know how they conk them on the head in those cartoons. So yeah, if people have questions, please type them in the comments. I try to do this stream when people are awake and up, and I'm still awake. It's probably morning for you if you're in the US, and evening for you if you're in Australia. So yes, let me just check on my YouTube. Yes, it is on. Good. Just always worrisome sometimes when I first do it. All right, Sabah. Oh, hello. I'll suggest some warm tea for winters. Yeah, so it's coming into winter for a lot of people. For us, it's coming into summer. It's been very hot here lately in Australia. Today was lovely, but yeah, on the weekend it was bloody hot. So, one of the best teas you can have in winter is cinnamon. Cinnamon and ginger are really good for maintaining. One is your metabolism. So cinnamon's a wood element herb, and ginger is an earth element herb. So this idea of like wood and earth, like supporting your spleen and stomach, generating the fire. Wood generates fire, so you have wood, fire, earth. This kind of situation. So cinnamon's great if you love cinnamon. So chai kinds of teas can be good. There's lots of pungent, warming things that could be combined with those things. Like you can have dried ginger with other things. So I know ginger's very lovely with lemongrass. A lot of people like those two flavors together as a flavor. Cardamom and like those fennel and that kind of stuff is common for like that chai kind of taste. I've got a herbal tea company, and one of the teas I make that tastes really nice together, which we call it winter tea, is cinnamon, hawthorn berry, and red dates. So you've got the sweet flavor, which is good for winter. Like you kind of want like sweet to kind of nourish you and calm you. If you boil that up as a tea, like you really brew it very strongly, it'll go very thick, and it could sometimes be quite syrupy for people. Like it might be too strong for you, so you might not want as much sweet flavor. So you could have cinnamon and honey as well if you wanted that sweet flavor, but you didn't have dates, or the hawthorn berry is called shanjar, and that's good for your digestion. It kind of it moves blood, tonifies, not tonify, but move blood, like stops blood stagnation, and it also stops food stagnation. So they're two things you could use. The other one I combine cinnamon a lot with is Siberian ginseng. Now, technically not really a Chinese herb, although it is used in some, like it is available in China, but it's not actually a Chinese herb, I don't think. But that can be used, and it's quite yummy tasting. And you could use normal ginseng in tea if you wanted as well. You don't have to; it's quite expensive. So herbs that warm you could be like the cinnamon, the ginger kind of things. Lemongrass is another good one, kind of pungent, moving. What other teas could you have for winter? The sweet flavors is probably better in winter than summer. So summer, the opposite side, you want more teas that are like minty flavors, maybe the blander flavors. Also, if you feel stagnant in winter, like some people feel very stuck and like maybe a bit depressed even, you could use citrus peel. So in Chinese medicine, we have a citrus peel called chen pea, and you also have ching pea. I'll write those two things down because it could be a bit hard to catch what I'm saying. Chen pea. Chen pea is that would be the best one to kind of use. And you could make this yourself by just getting oranges or tangerines or mandarins. You can make this either way and just use the peel of those things. So take the peel and just dry it. Now, if it's winter and it's damp and cold where you live, you probably won't dry very well. So you might need to dry it in an oven. But in summertime, you could dry these peels and then use them as a tea in those times. So I hope that's helpful, somewhat helpful and useful. So that's for teas for winter. Yeah, if other people have questions or things you want to talk about, well, I'll answer those on this stream. And if we don't have those questions, I'll go to the other questions. Yeah. So looking at what questions we might ask. Having a glass of wine tonight. It's 10 o'clock tonight, 10 p.m. here. Yeah, if you have a question, ask your questions. It takes a while for people to jump on these streams usually. So if you don't have your notifications turned on, then you might want to turn them on so you know when you're notified when there's a live stream happening. So Yeah, let me get some other questions. Dampness from the environment. Let's have a look. This is a person's question, I think. No, it's just a comment. Okay, someone asks, what about sour beers? Might that be a better option for damp than regular beer? It's pretty pungent. Yeah, so this was on one of the damp heat videos. You're very right. Who's written that, Mark? Yeah, so if something tastes, or the sweeter something tastes, the more sicklier, sweeter it tastes, it certainly is more dampening than something that is less sweet, and then even towards being more sour. And I think that's what he's saying, like sort of sour beers. That's going to be less dampening. And with beers and dampness and or all alcohols, you want to think about the thing that they came from. Where did they come from? So if it comes from grains, it's definitely more dampening than grapes. Grapes are less dampening just in general. And the grapes that are like sweeter, then you're going to have sweeter wines. Then you're definitely going to have more dampness in those wines. Whereas wines that are sour or tart kind of flavored, more tanniny kind of flavored, let's say, would probably be less dampening. And it's the same with spirits and all those kinds of things. So that was an easy question. That was an easy one. Yeah, so everyone feel free to ask your questions. Just going back to the previous live stream, and someone said, how come I missed this one? Is there a way I can get notifications of the next one? Yeah, so turn your notifications on. Sometimes people do have notifications turned on and YouTube doesn't turn them on. Like it still doesn't notify you. That sometimes happens. I'm going to try to do these things more regularly. I'll hopefully try to do them once a week. So if you do watch this in retrospect, then you feel free to ask the questions on this stream, and then they might be answered on the next stream. So yeah, someone asked a question on one of my spleen chi deficiency videos. They said, what was really interesting to me is just how much sitting behind my computer seems to seriously affect my spleen. Wireless and screens in general just seem to create a lot of dampness for me. So it's not that like Wi-Fi or 5G or anything like this creates damp, but what it does is it promotes the sedentary. And so dampness is like only able to happen when there's no movement for that. So the best example of this would be, this is a great example, when you have a pond, what's a pond full of? Water. What's water? It's pure yin, right? So if you have a pond and even if you have a cup, like let's say here's this, oh, perfect. I've got this exact. I couldn't have planned this any better. Actually, I've got this little example right here. So we'll get to that in a minute. Here's some water, right? Now, I just poured this out yesterday. I probably wouldn't drink it, but it's still okay, right? Doesn't smell. So this water is pure yin. Now, if I just let this sit here, like, when you go away somewhere and you come back in your house and the water's stinky, stagnant, right? That's dampness. That's what dampness is. So there's no movement for this water and it just sits there and the bacteria builds up or whatever happens. Now, this little thing here is actually a little, let me see if I can plug it in. Oops. That was an unintended consequence. Yeah. I wasn't planning to use this. So this, oh yes, awesome. So we'll go through this example. So here we go. Here's a science experiment I prepared earlier. This is one of those little mist makers, right? And you can see all the water's kind of literally bubbling out of it. going all, it's all aerating it, right? So I didn't what, yes. So this water is pure yin, right? Now, if this isn't in here, there's no movement except for now. It looks very cool with that stuff on there, right? Now, if we put this in here, it's going to aerate the water, and that's basically stops the dampness moving, like stops the dampness building up. I'm going to have to turn this off because the water goes everywhere really fast. So to go back a little step, I was just talking about this person's question that said they found it really interesting that how much sitting behind a computer creates dampness, right? And it's not that the computer's making dampness, but it's that lack of movement. So if you have yin kind of sitting there with no movement, dampness will accumulate from that yin, right? Now, you can consume foods that are like water that you drink doesn't just turn into dampness, and certain foods that we have can generate damp more. But if you didn't have the movement of your digestive system, so if you were dead and you just pumped water into someone, it will create damp because there's no yang to transform it. So if we just sit around all day, there's no yang movement, there's no qi movement, let's say. So it's this, wood generating fire, generating earth, wood, fire, earth, metal, water, the movement of those elements, they're not just static kind of elements sitting there. So yeah, it's not so much that she says, or he says, he probably, wireless and screens in general seem to create a lot of dampness for me. Yeah, it's the world we live in, unfortunately. So you have to create space and time for yourself to move around and not be stuck in that place. All right. So Shri says, please suggest some cooling herbs that could be used for brewing in summers. Yeah. So what particularly do you want to do with these cooling herbs? You want to make them into teas or have them, like, do you feel too hot? Is it just because you're looking for something healthy to kind of drink? So there's a few teas, there's a few herbs you can use in summertime. One of them is just mint. It might sound like, oh, that's so cliche, but there's many types of mint. There's probably more than 20 different varieties of mint and types of mint. So the Chinese mint's called bohe. So when they are using mint as a herb, for tea or some, it'll be called bohe, and it's a very strong kind of mint. It's different to the mint you pick out from your garden. So dried herbs are going to be much stronger than fresh herbs. So you could use that. You can also, particularly from Chinese medicine, there's another herb called sang ye, which is mulberry leaf. So if you've got a mulberry tree, you can use those herbs. And that mulberry leaf or sang ye is used very commonly to like clear heatiness or clear heat. So you have mulberry leaf, mint. There's another herb called lian chow, which I actually don't mind the taste of that as a herb. It's like a sticky kind of woody little wood kind of pod looking thing. And in the tea, like I have a tea company, a herbal tea company, and I combine those three things together in a spring tea with chrysanthemum. Now, that's not the best seller for the taste. It's a bit earthy, let's just say, right? But it does the job. So if you get heat and you get sore throats and you get congested in your face, those herbs are good for that sort of stuff. Licorice you can combine it with. So from a classical Chinese medicine perspective, we typically don't use those cooling herbs, right? We just don't use them. We would just say you don't need to necessarily cool your body down in summer. You just need to maintain that homeostasis. So you wouldn't want to necessarily, because too much cooling herbs can kill your yang, right? It destroys your yang. Now, drinking a little bit of mint tea isn't going to kill your yang, but if you have it all the time and you don't need it necessarily, it's it's not great. So you're best off just still having your ginger tea, and you don't necessarily want to overpower yourself with warming stuff, but you could still have all the same herbs. It's a different idea of thinking. So in TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, they often think of this, oh, this heat's coming on me, I've got to clear the heat. Even I've seen a tea package sold in Chinatown called Clear Heatiness. Right? And you're like, what is this heatiness? Chrysanthemum is another common one. And so if you like the taste of that, chrysanthemum is really good to mix with green tea. Gonna write it in here. And if you get a good quality of this Juhua, it's beautiful. It's really nice. And you can mix Juhua is very commonly mixed with pu'er tea. It's a type of green tea, and that's quite yummy. Pu'er teas are very robust, earthy. It's a full fermented tea. So I know a lot about different kinds of green teas. Like there's all different styles of green tea. If you don't like the flavor of that green tea, then just go for like an oolong tea, or in Chinese they call it tie guan yin. So you could go for that sort of tea. Like, I mean, really, you can mix any of those herbs I just mentioned. Chrysanthemum. You could mix the sangye if you want. Sangye's got much more of a musty sort of flavor to it. The mint, you could mix any of those things with a green tea, or even a black tea. In China, they often mix chrysanthemum with black tea. And there's a type of tea called black tea, hei cha. Hei cha. It's called hei cha. And it's not what we would consider black tea in the West, like Earl Grey black tea, but the hei cha is a fermented, a dark fermented tea. So it's really good for weight loss as well. Same as pu'er tea, but this is just very strong tasting. So if you like that robust, strong taste, the bitter flavors clear heat. So to keep answering your question, Shri, about teas and cooling herbs, green tea is a cooling thing in itself. So you could just use green tea. You could go for the fermented kind of green teas in that way. Yeah. So if people have a question, you feel free to ask the question. I forgot to put that on the screen when we were talking about it before. So I am answering people's questions tonight and talking about Chinese medicine. So I hope you're doing well. I hope you're having a great day, night. It might be daytime for you if you're in the UK or USA. So yeah, we can talk about dampness. We can talk about all kinds of stuff. I thought I'd just jump on here and do some question and answers. I'm just reading through all my other questions that I've got here to answer. Awesome. Let me know where you're tuning in from, or if you've got something you'd like to ask. There's no question that's too. If it's been asked before, I can re-answer it. Sometimes I answer it in a different way. It gives people a different perspective. Oh, here's a good one. Someone I might just take a screenshot of this to make a proper video on it as well. Someone said, hi, can you suggest something for vocal cord dysfunction? It took 8 months to find an ENT doctor, and why I can't breathe. I'm having crazy shortness of breath all the time. I cut all raw food as it was just making my chest spasm. So weird. I was finally able to add raw lettuce, and that's it. It's hard to read because it's a little bit hard to read this one. English isn't so great, I don't think. Before, everyone will say it's all in my head. I knew there was something wrong. I eat small bland portions of food, and I've lost a lot of weight. So yeah, I can't give people individual advice on the channel, right? For lots of reasons. Um, Legal reasons being the main one. It's not that I don't care. And also, I don't, there's got to be context to it, but I can talk about like in Chinese medicine how we think about your voice. And certainly this is something I've seen in the clinic a lot, where people come in with something very unusual that Western medicine can't seem to explain. And what's great about acupuncture, particularly, so I mean, herbs can do this as well, but particularly with acupuncture, if even sometimes with an acupuncturist, we don't know what's wrong necessarily in even in Chinese medicine. There might not be a super clear pattern that's there, right? But there's always a channel way of treating something. So what we would do in this case is we would think, okay, well, this is where the dysfunction is in your throat, if that's where it is. Well, what are the channels that affect that area and how could we treat those? So firstly, looking to see, is there an imbalance in those channels and how would we tell that? Depending on the skill of the practitioner and the training of the practitioner, some practitioners will palpate, not just necessarily this area, but palpate where those channels, like, so for instance, there's many many channels that connect up to here, but one of those channels is your large intestine channel, so kind of coming at the side here, and that channel kind of comes up on your hand here. So sometimes people may have a particularly sore point on what we call a distal area of the channel, which would be this area farther away from the local area, and that's one way of approaching it. So there's always a way in Chinese medicine. There's always a way around it. There's always a way to think about it. I've had a few people in the clinic over the years with these very strange, unusual complaints, let's say, and they've usually gone through a whole bunch of Western medicine tests, and there's literally like nothing wrong, but their symptoms are still there. And that's how we would approach it. So I'm not trying to make any claims about that we can treat it, but that's how we would approach it. So I never turn any patients away and say, look, we can't help you. But you won't know until you start doing the treatment. And often with people like that, they're at their wit's end, or they're at you're the last port of call, and they're like, well, I thought I would try acupuncture, particularly. That's how it's happened to me. So this, I can recall a few patients where they've had something in their throat or something in there, a feeling in their throat, or a loss of taste or a loss of smell. It is a very unusual kind of symptom that people can have, just that sort of seems to have come on out of the blue. This is before coronavirus, but I've even had this with a few patients who this has happened after a cold or a flu. Like, they wouldn't put it together with that and say, oh, it was from that. But when you do their history, it seems to kind of match up to that area. So I'm not sure what she means by vocal cord dysfunction, what exactly is wrong there. There can be issues where your vocal cords like aren't matching up at the same time, and so it's called a paroxysmal spasm, where it's like spasming when you're trying to talk, and so you can make a squeaky sound, or can be difficult to kind of get words out, or things like that. Herbal medicine can treat this kind of stuff as well. Like, I had a really interesting experience myself a few years ago now, so it was probably 2 years ago. And this is one of the times where I've always used Chinese medicine on myself, but one of the times where I really noticed it kind of like work amazingly. So if people want to know that story, I'll tell you the story. Sit down and I'll tell you a story. Yeah, it's very quiet on the stream tonight for some reason. Normally people just jump on, and YouTube told me this was a good time to do the streams. So I'm not sure. Maybe people are stressed out with the goings on of the world. So yeah, what happened to me in this scenario was I got a severe attack of hay fever, and I was sneezing and sneezing and sneezing so much. This was 2018, I think. And it was incredible. And I was actually doing my herbal tea business, and I was working at a fair, and there was a hay statue sort of down the road from where I had my stand, which was outside. And so I was trying to hold back these sneezes, literally. Like, you know, I don't know if you ever held back a sneeze, but you go to hachoo and you don't want to, you sort of sneeze into yourself. Like, I don't even want to do it now because I'm kind of scared, scared that that might happen again. Strangely, I'm just going to check this thing is working properly. Turn the volume up a little bit. If people can't hear or something, please let me know. I'm sure you can hear. Just got the microphone in a weird little spot this time. Anyway, so I was holding back these sneezes, and as I did so on one of these occasions, this was over a period of a whole day, I felt something click in my throat, like literally like a clicky sound. I was like, oh shit, like what's happened? Like I was really worried. And every time I swallowed, it was like this sound would go like this horrible scraping sound in my throat. I was like really not happy because I'm a singer. And at that point, I wouldn't say I was a professional singer, but I wanted to be. And I was pretty serious about what I was doing. And I'd been singing for many, many years, but I hadn't like done any professional recordings or anything at that point. Anyway, so that happened, and I was like, oh no. And I literally had a very raspy voice, and I had to keep going and do this show. And then I went home and I took a whole bunch of herbs. I used probably like Shao Chai Hu Tong, because the main thing was this sneezing. I couldn't stop this hay fever going on, right? Because the next day I had to go back to work, and I was next to this bloody hay statue again. And where I live in Perth, it's very big easterly kind of breezes, right? And so I'm sitting there serving my tea, and the hay fever had gone down. I had massive tubs of these herbs that I'd brought in with me, and I was drinking all the herbs. Saffron tea, I've not tried that, but yeah, that would have probably been good. Sounds nice. It's anyway, so that resolved. But then ever since that time, every time I swallowed, I had this little scratchy sort of scrapey thing in my throat. How bizarre. It was like this like sort of a sound. Yeah. It like a sound to yourself, you know how you hear something, and it was like a little click, like cook, like I thought a bone in my throat had dislodged, and I didn't know what had happened. And so I waited a week, like maybe 4 days, 5 days, and in the end I went to see a doctor, a general practitioner, and I explained to her, I said, look, I don't want to keep singing, because I was singing in a band at that point. Actually, I was singing in a band. And I said, I don't want to keep pushing my voice if I've done some permanent damage. You know, I don't want to be singing and making this worse. I need this to be checked. So she sent me to an ear, nose and throat specialist, where they sounded very terrible. They put a camera down your throat to have a look and see if there was anything wrong. So I kind of explained the situation to this specialist, you know, and he was like, looks at me like, well, this is a bit strange. I was like, yeah, it is a bit strange. And so he put the camera down my throat, and there was nothing there. He said, I can't see anything that's wrong. So I was like, okay, relieved that there was nothing physically out of place there. But there was definitely this moving. And when I was speaking, when I swallowed, like it doesn't happen now, but when I was swallowing, if I pressed my hand here, I could feel this little thing moving. And I showed him that, and he was like, oh, I'm not. He even said, I don't know what that is. I was like, that's a worry when ear, nose and throat specialist. So this is like supposed to be your special area. Says, oh, I don't know what that is. That could be very worrisome, right? Because I'm like, you're the expert. That's why I'm here. So anyway, I just went about my business as normal for a couple of weeks, and I was like trying to get this thing to recover. And I spoke to my Chinese medicine teacher, and I was like, what do you think? This is my teacher in the US. And I was like, what could I do? And he suggested a blood moving kind of formula called Guija Fooling one, and which I've used before for other things. And I took that, and within 2 or 3 days of taking it, like this thing just went away. It just completely, well, not completely went away, but it was starting to come good, to the point where I was like so relieved, because I was thinking, if I've broken my voice, like broken my throat, yeah. Now I'd done a bit of acupuncture on myself. No, I hadn't done any points on my throat here, but I'd done some points on my hands, and I'd probably done a couple of points on my chest. And had the herbs not worked, I probably would have gone and seen a friend who's an acupuncturist and had a treatment with them. But the reason why I'm telling you that story is because sometimes there's some weird things in weird things that Chinese medicine can kind of understand in a different way. So this formula, this Guizhou Fuling one's more like a trauma kind of formula in a way. Like it's a very mild blood moving formula, but because it had only just happened, that's one reason why you could probably kind of use those things. So yeah, I hope people have enjoyed the stream. If you're tuning in afterwards and you're just like, yeah, I've just tuned in for a bit of a stream. I hope this has been interesting to you. If you're interested in studying Chinese medicine, I'm doing a course. I put that in the link somewhere in the description to this video. And I would love to teach you about Chinese medicine. So you can find out more about my course at the website. And it's a 1-year course to kind of learn all the self-help aspects of Chinese medicine. So I'm going to be teaching people the foundational concepts of Chinese medicine. So we're going to go through all the different organs, all the different systems, talk about the 5 elements, talk about the interrelationships of the seasons and those things, and then think about how does disease happen from a Chinese medicine perspective? How do we get sick? The point of the course is for self-empowerment, right? So to teach people how to think about your body in a Chinese medicine way and be more empowered than just, I just know a bit of information here, a bit here, a bit here. It'll kind of consolidate that all. You don't need to buy any books to do the course. But if you've got Giovanni or something like that, it'll all be like Chinese medicine isn't different from one book to another. It's all the same kind of based on the same ideas. So yeah, you don't need to purchase a lot of expensive stuff to do the course. It's all kind of included. There'll be course notes and things like that in there. So yeah, if people are interested in knowing more about that, you can send me an email or you can jump on the website and have a check it out. Starting in 2022 in January. So yeah, if people have a question, you can ask it now. Otherwise, I'm going to probably jump off the stream in a little bit. If there's any other questions, I'll answer them. Otherwise, we'll probably end the stream. It's been fun to answer some questions tonight. Different times. I'm not sure what's the best time for people, but if you're watching this after the fact and you're like, oh, I've missed out, you can put your time slot that you'd like to do these things in. I'll try to make that happen as best as I can from my side of the world. Yeah. Sounds good. All right. No worries. So thanks everyone for your attention, and I'll see you again another time, and have a great week. We might do another live this week or next week. But there'll definitely be a couple of videos coming out this week. I've got a new one that someone asked me to do on parasite cleanse and what's the Chinese medicine view of that, and that's very interesting. So I'm talking about like cooling herbs, like so wormwood. Qing Hao is a Chinese herb, and they asked about that, and so that's a very cooling herb. What does that do? Vitiligo causes and remedies. Okay. It's kind of a big topic. So there could be some aspects of blood deficiency in there, right? So could be some aspects where there's not enough blood to kind of nourish the skin, and so then the skin gets those patches on it. Remedies, if it's blood deficiency, then it's kind of like tonify blood. Now you can go down the road of blood tonic foods, blood tonic herbs, a combination of those things. Not all of it is that, but most of the time. So your skin gets nourished by blood, and your skin tends to get dry because of a lack of blood to nourish it, and the loss of pigment can be from that. So it may depend on how long it's been there for, and it may also depend on where it is on the skin. So treatments could be, you can use acupuncture, and sometimes an acupuncturist will target those areas. Like, let's say you had patches, they might target those areas with acupuncture to just simply get blood flow there. But if it's a cause of blood deficiency, then we would want to nourish blood as the main treatment. So there could be other causes. It could be, like, I think in TCM they think of it as like possibly like a wind heat or a heat kind of condition could also be part of it. I don't think that's that common if it is a pattern. Haven't really seen that in the clinic. Yeah. So there's not like a cure as in a remedy, like this is one thing you could use and it all just goes away. But yeah, Chinese herbs over time can kind of help as blood gets nourished. Your skin's almost like surplus to the other organs, right? So in Western medicine, your skin is an organ. In Chinese medicine, it's not like one of the Zhang Fu organs. It's a separate thing, but it's surplus to the rest of your body in terms of if your body's deficient, it's going to sacrifice your skin before it sacrifices your liver or your heart or your spleen or something like that. So quite often, not always, but when people have these conditions, there's other stuff going on internally as well, not just the skin. So as those internal things get better, then the skin starts to get better. Oh, Holly, thank you. Oh, thank you so much for thanking me. Thank you so much for watching. If you have a question, feel free to ask the question. I'd love to answer people's questions. It's been a very, very slow start to this one. Normally I start these streams and within 15 minutes, lots of people jump on. And today, maybe the people that are jumping on are very shy or there's less people jumping on and there's not been as many questions. So if you'd like to ask a question, I'll give you time to ask it. I'm just having a chill out. Now it's the end of the night. I've had a long day today. Lots of video making, actually. I've done lots of video making, and I had a big Zoom call just before this. And yeah, this is how I wind down sometimes. I don't want to. Sometimes I do these too late at night, and then I'm all wired up. So I thought I'd do this a casual one, a casual question and answer. All right, so I think that's probably it. If anyone has a question, ask it now or forever hold your question. But thank you very much for your support of the channel, and I look forward to seeing you again on another video soon. And yeah, I'll if you have a time that suits you, let me know, and I'll try to schedule these streams at a time where more people are on it. All right, have a great night. See you, everybody.